City, if you don't know me. So we're carrying on our series on, principally on the Wheel of Life, which is this image here, and we're in week 3 of our exploration of the Wheel of Life. So this week we're going to be exploring the kind of interesting area here, which is this middle band, which are called the 6 realms. So I'll say a little bit about that later. I just thought let's kind of recap a little bit about this, about what we've covered so far. Dharmasiddhi started us off 3 weeks ago, and he was focusing on the inner circle of the wheel, which is the 3 animals that are biting each other's tails. So the cock, the pig, and the snake, which symbolise greed, hatred, and delusion. So the whole of the Wheel of Life is a sort of visual depiction of the unenlightened mind. The unenlightened mind. It's a visual depiction of how it all works, and also how we can make it work better, and how we can also move towards the enlightened mind as well. So it's a very complex symbol, and it's a very profound symbol. It's kind of like a map, really, of our minds, and how we can orientate ourselves, and how we can, once we've orientated ourselves, how we can get on the path to awakening, to Buddhahood. So yeah, Dharmasiddhi started us off with exploring the centrality of mind and the 3 poisons, the 3 animals symbolising that drive the active mind that we experience, the unenlightened mind. And Sadharaja last week then started to explore the 2nd circle in the Wheel of Life, which is this, half of it is white, with beings in ever-increasing happiness moving up towards the higher realms up here in the Wheel of Life, and half of it is black, which is kind of moving down to realms of suffering. And Sadharaja gave us a very clear exposition of karma, the different types of karma. Basically, in a nutshell, I think every culture has got their own version of karma, really. We all kind of get it sort of intuitively. You know, it's like, you know, people might say, as you sow, so shall you reap. I remember my grandparents saying that to me sometimes, you know, if you did sort of actions that were unfair or selfish or something, it'll come out as you sow, so shall you reap. So it's basically summing up the law of karma. It's like, if you do good actions, there'll be good consequences. If you do unskillful actions, there'll be consequences of suffering. That's the law of karma in a nutshell. And I think everyone kind of gets that, you know, in a certain sense. It's just sort of, it's quite apparent, isn't it? So that is in a nutshell. It's obviously much more subtle and complex, and I think Sadharaja gave us a very good overview of some of the subtlety and complexity of it. But basically, in pragmatic terms, it's if we're skillful, then skillful actions shape our mind towards happiness, and unskillful actions, which are the black half, shape our minds towards suffering. And it's not like it's some kind of punishment if we do suffer. It's just that we're out of sync with the way things are. It's a bit like the law of gravity. I hold up an apple, I drop it, of course it's going to hit the ground. It's not some god or something punishing the apple for falling to the ground. It's just the way things are. So it's a kind of impersonal law that we can choose to harmonise with, or we can choose to be out of sync with. Yeah. So it's the push and pull of our minds. We want pleasure, so we move towards pleasure, and we push away pain. That's what the Wheel of Life is kind of communicating. So this week, as I say, we're going to be looking at these 6 realms, which are in the middle circle, and Sadharaja has very kindly drawn enlarged versions of them, which I'll reveal on this flip chart shortly. And we'll have a closer look at these images. I think one of the powerful things of the Wheel of Life is that it is an image, and Dharma can be communicated through concepts, of course, but it's also communicated through images and symbols, and these are particularly powerful because they affect us directly in an emotional way. So sometimes, and I've noticed this over the years when I've been involved in teachings around the Wheel of Life, they can be very, very strong. It can be quite a powerful experience, reflecting particularly on the 6 realms. People often really connect strongly with that particular aspect of the Wheel of Life. Yeah. What I'd like us to do is to actually think about, break up into maybe 2 or 3s to begin with, because we're going to be looking at worlds. Yeah. So we've got a little question to get us warmed up. I can find it here. It may seem a bit obvious, because we're asking about worlds, but Buddhism sees everything as conditioned, and one of the things Dharmasiddhi touched on in the first week was that the world out there, which 19th century science has taught us about, and we imagine it's always real. But he was touching on this aspect of that actually our minds also condition our experience of the world, and this is very much the Buddhist view, that it's not just a world out there that's always the same. We also condition that world by how we perceive it. And so I'm interested in what is a world. What is a world? What is a realm? We're in a sort of human realm, aren't we? We're here together in a shrine room, we've all got human bodies, we've all got human language, and we understand that, and we've all got a sort of similar experience that we share, and we call that a world. And we also can see there's other types of worlds, like for example the animal realm is very visible. There's birds, there's animals, wildlife, nature. That's another kind of world. What is a world? And I think it's important just to kind of think a bit about that before we delve into the teaching of the 6 realms, of the 6 worlds. So maybe in pairs of 3s, just for a few minutes, what is a world, and why do we have an experience of self and world? Because you could say that what a world is everything that's not self. So we have a sense of ourself, and therefore everything outside of that sense of self is world or other. Why is that? So why don't you break into pairs of 3s and just knock that about for a few minutes, and I'll ring a bell and we'll come back to have a little, we'll hear back from people who contribute, yeah? Any kind of thoughts about these questions? What is a world? Why do we have a sense of self and world, sense of self and other? Anything come out of the discussions for your little groups? Yeah?
I think attention was an interesting word that we discussed. So if you're attending to very negative things, then you might find yourself in a certain world, or if you're attending to very sublime things, you might find yourself in a certain world.
Yeah.
And that kind of says why there's a difference between self and world, because there's a self that has the attention.
That's a very, very good, that's a good reflection, isn't it? It's essentially what we focus on sort of conditions how we experience the world, isn't it? It's like a lens, isn't it? Sometimes we use this term, seeing the world through those tinted glasses, when we're talking about someone who maybe sees things a little bit too nice, in a too nice a way. We'll say that sees the world through rose-tinted glasses, which means they maybe tend to ignore the negative side. So it's like sometimes the way we choose to tend to our experience conditions what we notice, and therefore conditions our awareness of it. And it's like an example of if I was to hold up a partially filled glass of water, and say, what do you see? Some people might say the glass is half full, and some people might say the glass is half empty. And there's a kind of perceptual bias, towards seeing it as half empty and half full. Of course, we use that in language, don't we? He's a glass half full type of person. Might be someone who tends to look for the positive in situations, and someone who's a glass half empty person might see the problems and the difficulties. And they've both got their uses, it's not that one's better than the other, but it can show you how if we just have a lack of flexibility around that, we might tend to see the world in a one-sided way, perhaps too much. Yeah. A really good point, yeah. Anything else?
So it doesn't stop how we perceive, right? Because we literally influence the reality if we
Yeah.
see the world through this positive lenses, right? And then, for example, smile to someone and someone smile back, so it's just
Absolutely, and that's what Buddhism is saying, is that the world isn't just happening to us and we've got no say in it. We're actually creating our world through the way we're choosing to attend to it, the way we are choosing to interpret it. But some of that interpretation, and we'll come back to, is to do with how our habitual actions, that shapes our consciousness. And I think that's why when we look at each of these 6 realms from the Buddha, we'll start to see how karma shapes our particular mind and consciousness, which then causes us to be in a sort of world where we sort of have a perceptual bias, you could say, which affects our choices, which therefore then affects, we just keep maintaining that kind of world over and over again until we break out of it through awareness, change how we attend to it. Yeah. Anything else that came up? Maybe one more?
We attach identity to, or we relate to words through sense of identity. So you have the world of, professional one and family and so on, friends, but that's kind of, even within the, Buddhism, you can also feel like, I'm more connected with these Buddha figures because of, I resonate with the qualities, but it's still going back to your sense of identity somehow.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, how our sense of identity, and we notice that within our own life, and from what I'm picking up from what you're saying, Isabel, it's like we're in certain, if I'm in work, I feel like I'm in the world of work. If I'm with family, I'm in the world of family. If I'm in the centre, I'm in the world of the Sangha. Sometimes they seem like the different experiences, and they draw out different identities from us. And sometimes when we have a different identity, we feel like a different person. We might be happier with a certain identity, or we might not be happy with the way we're related to another identity, and it's more restrictive. Some identities may be more happier and expansive. So that's another interesting point about this teaching of the real life. The Buddha is reminding us that our identity it can change. And when our identity changes, we then relate to our world in a different way. We create a different world, potentially. But there's a tension, isn't there, between how we're related to either of us, and how that can draw out a good side or a limited side of ourselves. There's definitely a tension between our personal identity and the environment and how we're related to can really influence us. Well, thanks very much for your feedback. It was really interesting. So let's have a little bit of a closer look at these different realms, a bit of input about them. I know some of you will be very familiar with these realms, but they're always good to reflect on. It's always good to reflect on these teachings. In some ways, this image and these teachings, they are, the wisdom teachings. They're the Buddhist vision. There's a book by Subhuti, about 200 pages, talking about this whole image in great detail. So a lot more detail than we can do in the short time we have here. But there's a lot can come out of it, and it's really important to have, like you, it's really important to have the Buddhist vision. If we're going to make progress spiritually and develop. So it's a very, very practical and important teaching, very radical. Looking at what the Buddha was saying about this particular teaching, I had a little nosy at the early teachings. I sometimes just like to hear what the Buddha's voice, or what I imagine the Buddha's voice being like. And he talks about these 6 realms as being the diversification of karma, It's interesting, because each of these realms is a kind of mixture of different karmas. Some of them predominate with craving, which is like the hungry ghost realm. Some of them predominate with pleasure, which is the God realm. Some of them predominate with power and competitiveness and envy, which is like the Titan realm, and so on. So there's a particular karmic habit that shapes these different worlds that the Buddha talks about. And I think the diversification of karma is quite a good term. It's very, very accurate. because it's almost showing us that different karmas create different ways of perceiving the world, and then that becomes our sort of reality for the time being that we're in that state. So let's have a look at the God realm. So Sararaja's very kindly enlarged these so we can get a better view of them. So this is the God realm. What do we see in the God realm? Well, first of all, we see view scene. We see what looks like the Taj Mahal, doesn't it, in India. Which is, of course, an incredibly beautiful building. It's one of the wonders of the world, I think, isn't it? And so there's an image of beauty, so that's suggestive of the God realm. There's very handsome men and women, so there's beauty, and they're wearing fine clothes and designer labels and things like that. So in the God realm, it's a kind of interesting realm which is predominated by pleasure, which in a way sounds quite attractive, doesn't it? I mean, who doesn't want more pleasure? Who doesn't want more lovely holidays? Who wouldn't turn the nose up at a trip to the Taj Mahal or a lovely tropical island? Who wouldn't want a bunch of money? Who wouldn't want to enjoy affluence, beauty, have great, good looks, opportunity, going on great holidays, skiing holidays, maybe, luxurious Caribbean holidays perhaps, having beautiful houses, all done with the best interior design by the top designers, having fabulous cars, incredibly luxurious, so you feel fantastic driving them. You have incredible accessories and all the latest jewellery, and it's a world of ease, comfort, pleasure, lots of opportunities. I mean, what's not to like, And yet, here we are. It's by the Buddha saying this is not really a reliable source of refuge. It's not a reliable realm to be in, and yet a lot of us fantasize about being in this realm. I know in my workplace, one of the topics that comes up periodically is what would we do if we won the lottery? And basically, we'd all like to be sort of fund a God realm lifestyle. That's what comes out of it. So, what's not to like about it? Also, spiritually, one can get into very pleasurable, deep states of consciousness. I mean, probably you've had experiences of that yourself, meditating regularly. You have a really positive metabhavana, you can feel in a way like a god. Interestingly, the metabhavana is part of a series of meditations called the Brahma Viharas, and that literally means to dwell like a god. So it's all that positive, radiant, loving kindness can, take you into these very godlike states of mind. So they've definitely got their uses, being in these positive states of mind, but there's also a danger, and it's a sort of delusion. So if you think about what the karma is, we've got greed, hatred, and delusion. Delusion in Buddhism is basically not taking on board the law of karma. So it's a deluded view that the law of karma doesn't matter, that actions don't have consequences, and this is the danger in the God realm. Is that we're enjoying ourselves so much we get complacent, and we don't remember that the reasons we're having such a great time is because we did skillful actions in the past which have led to us experiencing pleasure and happiness in the present. But if we don't keep making skillful actions in the present, we won't experience happiness in the future. So there's a sort of laziness about the God realm, a complacency, which is a kind of form of karmic delusion. So although it's great for a while, and probably we're all attracted to it, it will change because everything's impermanent, and it's not fully connected with the law of karma. Actions have consequences in the future. So in each of the realms, there is also a Buddha who offers the way back into the path of the Dharma to the beings in each of the 6 realms. And so in this particular realm of the gods, the Buddha is holding a lute, which is it's a very beautiful musical instrument, somewhere between a guitar and a harp. It's got a very beautiful sound. And of course, beauty is the language of the gods. They really respond to beauty. So the Buddha plays this beautiful song of impermanence on his lute, and it's so moving and so beautiful. The gods, even though they're enjoying these incredible pleasures, they hear and feel the reality of impermanence, and that brings them back onto the path of the Dharma. They realise they have to make effort to keep being skillful and not just soak up all this effortless, wonderful pleasure that they're currently experiencing. Yeah? So that's a little bit about the God realm. So you could say it's not a robust place to be, although it's super pleasurable for a while, and we probably all secretly hanker after it, like the lottery win fantasy. It's not a great place to be really in terms of gaining enlightenment. And then we move on round the realm. So you can see on the wheel here we've got the God realm at the top, and then we move round to what's now called the Titan realm. So what do we see in the Titan realm? Well, we see what looks like pretty macho sort of warrior type guys with swords and shields, fighting and battling, and very kind of highly sexualized women who've got, you know, the feminine powers of sexuality on display by the looks of it. And this is quite a mixed realm. It's a realm that's predominated by the karma of envy, yeah, which is, envy is a funny one, isn't it? You know, what exactly is envy? It's a mixture of hatred and covetousness at the same time. So it's a kind of interesting kind of combination of two poisons. And traditionally, the Titan realm is seen as a realm or a world of warfare. It's perpetual warfare. So that is why we've got these warriors fighting all the time. It's a one of conflict, jealousy, competitiveness, big egos. People thrive on conflict. I mean, I've been following the news, and I've been noticing what I think are the Titan tendencies of people like Donald Trump, who've been on the news quite a lot in the last month or two. And he just seems to love it, doesn't he? He just loves provoking people. He thrives on putting everyone's back up. He thrives on conflict. He just seems to absolutely love it. And that is very Asura realm type stuff. It's the realm of vanity projects. It's personalised, license plates. It can be very vulgar displays of their ego. In Scotland, we have this famous golf course called Turnberry, which hosts, the world famous British Open Championship. You might not know much about it if you don't, but it's big. And Donald Trump bought it years ago and changed the name to Trump Turnberry. The local people were not very happy about that, and they protested about that. But that's the sort of thing that is a bit Titan realm. It's vanity projects. It's about them and their ego and that kind of thing. So you get it a lot in big business. It's winners and losers. It's about having status. It's about the big I am, as it were. But of course, being the big I am, being the top dog, doesn't last forever, and there's always other people fighting you to become the top dog as well. So you can see that with people that are the top dogs, they're often a bit paranoid by other people trying to take their power away, because if they take the power away, they take their status away, and that's the one thing they don't want. It's like a drug. But of course it happens, and all top dogs eventually lose their top dog position, and somebody else becomes a top dog. And they don't like losing, So it's a difficult one, and there's a lot of suffering, because you can only maintain that power for a short period of time, relatively speaking. So what does the Buddha offer the Titans, that kind of realm? He offers a sword, but this is no ordinary sword. This is a sword of wisdom, which is even more powerful than sort of swords from warfare, because the sword of wisdom cuts right through the veils that obscure reality, and that's something that strangely the Asuras find impressive, because Asuras are into power. But they're also into clarity. They don't like small talk. They don't like people being too nice. They're impatient to get clarity. They want to get to the guts of things, and they don't mince their words. We saw that with an interview with, say, Zelensky and Trump that was a bit topical in the news in recent weeks. it was totally asheric, wasn't it? There was no softeners, there was no diplomacy. It was like, I'm going to kick your butt, basically. That's very asheric. But strangely, the Buddha recognises that desire for clarity and for a power that's more stronger than the asheras usually lust after. You don't get any stronger than wisdom. Yeah? And they sort of respond to that. They realise that wisdom's powerful and it's deeper than their vanity and stuff and their usual frustrations with trying to maintain power. So they respond to it. We're an academic city in Cambridge. It's quite common for professors and academics to be quite peppery. I hope I haven't insulted anyone here who's involved in that world, but it's well known, isn't it? You know, academics can be very peppery and they just cut through things in a really brutal way sometimes to get to what they think is the truth, you know, so they can respond to that wisdom side of the Dharma, which is incredibly clear and points to something deeper than they're used to. So they respond to that. So that is why the Buddha holds a sword in this realm. It speaks their language, you know. So again, like the gods, the lute speaks the language of the gods, the sword speaks the language of the Titans. Yeah. And so then we move along to the animal realm. And of course Charles Darwin in the 19th century proved that we were evolved from the animals, you know, and we take that as a given now, don't we, in the 20th century, in the 21st century, we are evolved animals. We are part of the animal realm, and of course we can see that in our brains sometimes. We have a survival brain. Neuroscience has shown we've got different types of brains that have evolved. And we've got primitive reptilian brains, we've got mammalian brains, and we've got more what we might call human brains with high levels of awareness. So we know we've evolved from the animal realms, we know we share kinship with the animal realm. In the Wheel of Life, the animal realm is really a kind of symbol of the karma of a sort of ignorance or a limited consciousness. Yeah, animals are very beautiful. I love animals, but they have limitations. They have limited patterns of instinct that they can stick to, and it's hard for them to step out of that. You know, there's a famous story of how monkey hunters in India catch monkeys. They put a peanut in a glass jar, which the monkey can just get its hand into, and it grasps the peanut, and then it can't get its hand out because the fist won't get out. But because of the limited patterning of simple animal consciousness, it can't think or break out and say, if I let go of the peanut, I'll be free. It can't get there. It just hasn't got it. It's a simpler level of consciousness than human consciousness. So that's a sort of example, you know. And of course, because of those limited patterns, animals can be vulnerable to exploitation. And I was reading about the meat industry recently, and 96 billion animals are slaughtered in appalling conditions for human consumption every year. So I think, as you know, trying to be compassionate to animals, you know, one of the best things we can do is adopt a vegan or vegetarian diet, because that can help to reduce the suffering by reducing, you know, the demand for the meat industry. In Buddhism, yeah, it symbolises a lack of higher awareness. So, you know, human beings are said to have self-reflexive awareness, or at least the potential for it, because sometimes you meet people who've got human bodies and they don't necessarily seem particularly more advanced than animals. In fact, they can seem worse than animals sometimes. Human beings can go to extremes, you know, where animals don't quite go to the same extremes. So it's a complex one, but potentially there is human reflexive awareness. So the book that the Buddha is offering the animals is basically a symbol of learning, education, culture, self-awareness, imagination, and these are faculties that can be developed as a human being and can support us on our path to awakening. Yeah. into the hell realm now. So what do we see here in the hell realm? Well, we see this interesting, very scary looking horror film type image of a creature with fangs and wide open mouth holding a mirror. And there's all these fires and strange creatures and flames and suffering and lots of desperation, hands reaching up. It's a pretty scary looking realm, you know. And obviously we've got our own theological history of, you know, being we're sort of post-Christian culture, aren't we? But we've still got a legacy of, you know, where realms like heaven and hell were very much a reality for our ancestors, and maybe even for us in our own lives, I don't know. But in Buddhism, hell is it's a state of suffering. Yeah, it's a state of extreme suffering. And it can arise from the karmas of guilt and aversion, self-loathing, anger and resentment. So these very extreme, intense poisons could lead us karmically to a realm which is quite hellish. Yeah. It's not a punishment. Again, it's not as I was saying earlier. It's not a punishment to being in hell. It's just an outcome of unskillful actions, and those unskillful actions can change, they can be purified. So, you know, those of us brought up with fire and brimstone, images of hell from, you know, some of the more Christian legacy. It's a little bit different in Buddhism because there's always a way out of hell. It's to do with the consequences of actions, and that will exhaust itself or end or can be transformed. I work in mental health. I work with people with paranoid schizophrenia. I work with people who've lived homeless. I work with people that have who've been in prison for many, many years, and some of them have, you know, done some pretty serious crimes in their life. And I've witnessed, you know, what I would call hellish states of mind. I've been there as a support for them, and they've maybe had very psychotic or psychosis experiences, and they're in a personal hell, and that can be very, very scary. And obviously, as someone that's working in that as a carer, I'm there to try and support and help them to you know, get out of that, to give them reassurance and sympathy. My partner, she used to volunteer for Samaritans, and obviously they can be a last call for people who are thinking about taking their lives. You know, they're feeling so much suffering in their lives, they're thinking about ending it. It happens, and sometimes they might be down by the railway tracks, and they'll see a poster for the Samaritans, and it'll just be that last seat of I'll phone the Samaritans, and they'll call, and people like my partner who volunteer for them will take the call, and they're just offering sympathy, compassion, and that can be enough to change the pattern of hell, to bring them out, to keep them alive. So, you know, compassion is a big thing in the hell realm, bringing compassion to deal with that pain. And this is what the Buddha is bringing to this realm. He's holding a healing balm, an ambrosia, which deals with the immediate suffering. And you know, if someone's in a hell realm, there's no point, you know, teaching them the mindfulness of breathing. There's no point telling them to come to the centre or something like that. You've got to just deal with the immediate suffering, and the balm, the healing balm, is a symbol of that. Being with them, maybe medication can be helpful as a sort of modern version of the healing balm to help stabilise them. Yeah. And then we move on to the Preta realm, the hungry ghost realm. So what do we see in the hungry ghost realm? We see desert. We see these very strange creatures in the desert. They have big eyes, very small mouths, and huge swollen bellies. Yeah. And these are the pretas, hungry ghosts. They have huge appetites, but they can't satisfy these appetites. They're constantly craving for food and drink, but they can never get enough. When they do find food and drink, and they consume it, it starts to turn into fire in their mouths, causes suffering and pain. if they swallow it, it turns into swords in the stomach, damages them, it's painful. So it's a sort of realm of addiction. That's a classic hungry ghost realm. You can't really get satisfaction. And of course, our society, in a certain sense, has a bit of a hungry ghost aspect to it. It affects all of us, doesn't it? Basically, the advertising industry is designed to make us crave stuff, isn't it? It's designed to make us feel that our current smartphone is not enough, and want the next one. And that's okay up to a point. But if our real need is, say, for love, belonging, connection and meaning, and we try to meet that need by buying a new smartphone, it's not really gonna rock it, is it? It might get a temporary buzz from having a new gadget, but your real needs for love, connection, meaning, etc. are not really being satisfied. So in the Preta realm, the Buddha is offering the pretas food and drink that really satisfy them. So in a way, the food and drink that really satisfies us is these things. We want love, we want belonging, we want meaning, we want connection. That's what we really want, but we end up buying a box of chocolates instead, or a new pair of trainers, or a new smartphone. It doesn't really get there. And I was thinking about the iconic institution in our society that helps with hungry ghost realm energy, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, drink addiction. And why it's successful is because it creates self-esteem amongst the members. They come together, there's connection, there's belonging, there's self-esteem about becoming more sober. But there's also giving, there's an altruism to it. You're helping others by sponsoring them and supporting each other, and all these things meet the real underlying needs of the Preta realm. Yeah. So the Buddha giving food and drink with the Preta realm is a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's meeting the real needs, the underlying needs. And then lastly, the human realm, our realm. This is the realm that we are in, at least some of the time. At least bodily. So what do we see here? Well, we see all the things that we do. You know, we work, we bring up families, we have hobbies, we meditate, we have cars, we drive places, we travel, we're friends, we socialise. These are all the things that we do in the human realm, and that's all depicted here. What the key teaching to get across here about the human realm from the Wheel of Life is that the Buddha is basically saying the human realm is the best realm to gain enlightenment in. I'm going to say a little bit about that later because time's going on. So I think what we'll do is I'll talk about the human realm after the break, and then we can have some discussion as well. But I think what we'll do is just have a short 5 or 6 minute meditation before our tea break, just to absorb. There's quite a lot of input. The thing about 6 realms is so much to talk about, so that might be a good place to pause for the time being and just take in some of the realms that are presented, think about them in your own experience, contemplate them a little bit. So we'll just get comfortable. We'll just do a little. I'll just talk a little bit more, not too long, because it would be good to get into discussion groups very soon. But I just thought I'd say a little bit more about the human realm. There's quite a bit to input in the 6 realms. There's so much you can say about each realm. Try and keep it pithy so we can have a balanced evening. But it's not always that straightforward. But yeah, it's good to give a little bit of attention to the human realm before we break into groups. So the human realm, yeah. So I think the key thing about the human realm is that the Buddha taught that it was the best realm, the most important realm for practicing the spiritual life. Yeah. Now, why did he say that? Why did he say that? Because in the human realm, there's a kind of balance of the karmic poisons. You know, we've noticed when we went round the other realms, there's there's an intensification of craving in the hungry ghost realm, or hatred in the hell realms, or delusion in the gods and the animal realms and stuff. So there's a sort of there's a kind of dominant karmic force that makes it difficult to kind of bring awareness into your experience and make the change necessary. And the thing about the human realm is there's an element of self-awareness, yeah? There's an element of self-awareness, and that is the key to recognising the gifts that we've talked about in each of the realms that helps to transform the karma that creates that realm and creates that state of mind in that world. So the human realm gives us that potential freedom to transform the whole of the wheel of life, yeah? There is a poison in the human realm, a karmic poison in the human realm that we have to be aware of, and that is pride, conceit. It's not as grandiose as the pride in the Titan realm with the big I am and wanting to be the top dog, but there can be a sort of pride where you just don't want to look at underlying realities, you don't want to look deeper at life, you're just getting on with things, you want to get on and progress and make your life as reasonably comfortable and pleasurable as you can, and you don't want to go look a bit deeper. And this is where we have this interesting figure in the realm of the human realm, which is the Buddha being a spiritual practitioner. Yeah? So he's actually just being himself, which was a monk in the human realm. And this is the gift in the human realm. And what that's reminding us as human beings is that obviously we've got lots of responsibilities and family and work and with lots of pulls on our time and busyness, but he's reminding us, don't forget the deeper meaning of life, don't forget the spiritual life, don't forget deeper meaning, because in this realm we have this precious opportunity to make something of our lives that's very, very rare and valuable. And for me, this symbol in the modern world, the 21st century, we're not wearing monks' robes as order members. We've got cases to symbolise we're trying to live a committed as life as possible, dedicated to Buddhism. But for me, this is really symbolising our community, our centre, our sangha, if you like, because I think the sangha is a really precious thing for us as practitioners of Buddhism, because it can support us in our spiritual lives. Because if I'm in work, I can't really talk about Buddhism with people in my team at work. They just think I'm a bit strange if they did, So to come here and feel I can talk with people that share the same values as me makes me feel more, more me, really. And that validates it, instead of getting this social mirror reflecting back that it's something wrong with you if you like Buddhism or something, And so when I come here, I feel resourced, I feel strengthened by the friendship of like-minded people, and that strengthens my deep feeling for the three jewels. Yeah. So I think in the modern world, this gift in the human realm is really our sangha, our spiritual community. It's so important. And it's also worth remembering that there's a sort of intermediate goal for us. Enlightenment is, is quite a big goal, isn't it? It's quite a long way down the path. But there is a sort of an intermediate goal, which is to be a happy, healthy human being. So in the human realm, we're not as intensely competitive as the Asuras, which we explored. The difference is, if you're an Ashura, you always have to be top dog, don't you? You always have to be in control. In the human realm, we can cooperate. Sometimes we might take the lead, sometimes somebody else might take the lead. We're able to give and take and cooperate to get things done and create community. In the Preta realm, we might have addictive tendencies. We might get fed up or stressed out, and we might go and do a lot of retail therapy to try and give ourselves some pleasure, but it doesn't really deeply satisfy. So we can transform that by, making real friendships, doing things that are, of value and meaning and beauty and connection. Yeah. So we're not always experiencing addictive tendencies in the human realm, and we've got the potential to transform that and change it. we're not always overwhelmed by intense pain. Yes, we might be able to recognise times in our own lives where we felt in personal hell realms. Maybe our lives have fallen apart somewhat. Things that we went for refuge to have ended. Maybe important relationships have ended. Maybe we've had financial problems that caused a lot of stress and created a lot of problems in our life, which felt for a period like a hell realm. But they can change, and they do change, and we can rebuild, and we can get better. We've got that potential in the human realm to do that. Similarly, we might have a propensity to come back from work, switch on EastEnders, get a big bag of crisps and a can of Coke out, and just be like an animal, limited consciousness, vegging out, not really doing anything in particular. Maybe that's okay sometimes, don't get me wrong, I enjoy a bit of vegging out as well. But if that's all the time, it's going to be unsatisfying, isn't it? And we've got an opportunity to learn, to educate ourselves, to develop this precious self-awareness that we have as human beings, and to live with deeper values which are ultimately more satisfying. So all the realms crop up to some extent in the human realm, but they don't necessarily overwhelm us all the time. And that's the value of being in the human realm, is that we can transform the karmic poisons into positive mental states that support us on the path to enlightenment. Yeah, and that is why the gift in the human realm is the spiritual practitioner. It's a reminder of higher values, and not to forget, not to get lost in things that are okay, but if it's everything, maybe it's not going to be satisfying enough. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the human realm, and a little bit about the importance of Sangha, spiritual community, and helping us to stay in the human realm. Friendship is so important, isn't it, for psychological health? Community is so important, belonging, deeper meaning is so important. All these things help us stay healthy human beings. Giving and altruism help us stay healthy human beings as well. So we need to think about our own lives. Do we sometimes visit some of the realms and and suffer? We might have temporary pleasure and suffer. How do we transform those visitations to some of the realms that we might recognise from the presentation in our own lives? And how do we transform it so that we can get into a happier human realm? Is there a part of us kind of secretly wants to be the Deva realms, and we think that's the purpose of life? Is that really going to cut it? Do we need to think a little bit deeper about our lives, and try and get off the wheel completely into the awakened mind that the Buddha is pointing towards? Yeah? So I think what we'll do is we'll split into groups. I'll just see if I can find my questions. I'll write them down. So we've been looking at the 6 realms. The questions are really to do with that. So yeah, what realms do you tend to visit in your life? It can be a bit. I said the real life in the 6 realms in particular, like a mirror. It can be a bit. Sometimes a bit shocking, but also sometimes a relief to see, oh, hang on, I go to the Preta realm, I see that now, I've got this tendency to crave, but it's not very satisfying, and actually I would like to change that. So which realms of the real life do you notice in your life? Is there any that are what we call the lower realms, like the animal realm, the hungry ghost, the hell realm, maybe the Titan realm? Or do you feel your life is mostly in the human realm? Or even the God realm, and the other question is really just about freedom, total freedom, because we've got to in a way challenge this maybe unconscious view that if only we'd won the lottery we'd be happy and we could live like gods. Is that really the deep purpose of life? Is to try and live it as a God realm as much as possible and have all that luxury and fantastic opportunity and pleasure? Or is there something beyond that would be even more satisfying? And what's your sense of what that could be? So there's quite a few questions there. I'll leave them up on the board. what I would suggest is we split into groups of 4 or 5, and I'll just let you guys choose who you want to break up into. Don't be shy if you don't know people. Just join a group. Keep it about 4 or 5 at most. You'll probably get 3 or 4 groups out of it. And we'll have a good discussion about all the presentations on the different realms that we've had. And I'll ring a bell at some point, and then we can come back and have a short plenary and then meditate after that, okay? So yeah, go for it. There's a lot of interesting conversations happening about the 6 realms. I've overheard a little bit here and there. Is there any comments, questions, anything you want to bring up from the group that you think might be good for others to hear about? So we've got a little bit of time to do a bit of sharing.
Well, we can't reveal anymore. We've already exposed ourselves and our realms to between ourselves, so you know.
Well, that's, in a way, it's a good thing because there's something very personal about the 6 realms, isn't there? It's that mirror quality,
Yeah,
a lot of honesty
Yeah,
come
yeah.
out of it. And I totally get that. Maybe, you know,
Although
sacred confidentiality.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, God, you inhabit that realm too.
Yeah, exactly.
We did learn that tahini and honey is a good snack.
Yeah,
Interesting.
midnight snacks. That's what we're talking about.
Chris is going to stock his cupboard now.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you find the 6 realms? I mean, is it something that speaks to you? Is it something that's useful for your own spiritual life, do you think?
Actually, I just say, as I said right at the end, I found them very complete.
Yeah.
In all the in all the other times, the other areas you visit in your life, you think, well, hang on, it's there. It's in those 6
Yeah,
realms. You know, I
yeah.
can't say there's anything missing.
That's a good point, yeah. It's like you can always locate your mind somewhere.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's kind of useful to know, isn't it? Know where you're starting from, but also in each realm, the Buddha's giving these gifts, which are in a way the path of transformation, you know, to bring us back into the human realm and beyond the human realm to the Dharma path as well. So
I
yeah.
remember the collage activity and the retreat.
Oh yeah.
right, when
Yeah.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the realms and how easy it was to fill all the empty spaces with
Mm.
just one newspaper.
Mm.
It's there already. Everything is
Yes,
there.
yeah, that was really enjoyable. That wasn't it? I was on that retreat with Anna, and I had led this collage workshop. You had like tons of magazines and stuff, and we had to find images that we thought reflected the different realms of real life. It was really enjoyable. It was a lot of fun, you know. Got loads out of it.
And that was, did you say there was one realm that it was really difficult to find pictures for?
No, like actually all of them. It was really easy to
Okay.
find images.
Mm.
Then we were having like this kind of reflection that yeah, it is there. This is our life, right? It's only the one newspaper. You don't even need the
exactly.
phones.
That's a good one. That's the interesting thing, that once you start to absorb these teachings from the real life, like the 6 realms, you start to see it everywhere. It starts to become just part of how you see the world. And that can be really useful, not only for yourself in terms of knowing where your mind is at, but also for other people. If you know that someone's in a Predator realm or a Titan realm, it can help you understand what they're going through as well. And it's interesting that this is a compassion practice too. It's not just about our own minds, although it's very useful for our own minds. It's also helps us develop compassion for other people who are in those mental states or realms, and we can find the right gift to maybe help them get out of the realm, or at least it gives us a reason to practice patience and compassion. We can't do anything, you know, so it can be really good for developing compassion as well.
The other thing we talked about was if you're in a particular environment that reflects one of the realms, you get conditioned by it.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden you've got Titan kind of qualities
yeah,
because everyone else is competing and you feel like you should compete, and that's how it is. And then you step out of that realm and you look back and you think, oh, that wasn't me.
yeah,
Or how did I, you know, yeah, I've been conditioned by it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's very important to recognise as well. Yeah, because it does affect us, our environments.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the worlds that we're participating in can affect us. We have to be strong. If we're in a time run, that could be really tough.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question? So you've, in the first question, you've
Yeah.
put lower realms and higher realms.
Yeah.
Does it say which ones are actually meant to be higher
Yeah.
and which are lower?
Yeah, the Buddha taught that as a distinction in his teachings. The lower realms are the ones that have more suffering in them. So traditionally, that is the hungry ghost realm, the animal realm, and also the hell realm. They're seen as the realms or states of mind where there's a high preponderance of suffering. So it's a bit like the black circle leads down to realms of suffering. The Titan realm's a bit ambiguous. There's some pleasures and successes that go with the Titan realm, but there's also a lot of suffering as well, so it's a little bit in between. And the two kind of higher realms, or in other words, realms where there's more propensity towards happiness and well-being, are the human realm and the God realm, so if that makes sense. And that's where the white segment leads up to the human realm and the God realm, through skillful actions, in other words.
I suppose there's lots of striving in the Titan realm, which could be a skill that's used in a good way.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, in the order, we've definitely got people that would probably say that they used to be Titans or had been in the Titan realm, but they use their skills now as old members, committed Buddhists, to help the movement, and of course we're not separate from the world, and the world can be a tough place, and so having someone who understands the world and the politics and has a certain robustness can be a fantastic resource for helping develop the Sangha and the new society. Right. Well, I think we will have to leave the questions there.